I'm not exactly what you'd call a collector, but I've always had a soft spot for old stuff. Not the kind of old stuff you'd see in museums, more like the kind you'd find at a yard sale or flea market. Vinyl records, Polaroid cameras, old video games. There's something comforting about holding something that's lived a life before it ended up in your hands. It's like finding a forgotten story and becoming a part of it. So when I stumbled on a flea market on the edge of town one Saturday, it felt like fate. I hadn't planned to stop, just saw the cluster of tents and tarps out of the corner of my eye as I drove by. But something made me turn around. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Most of the stalls were the usual mix of junk, rusted tools, boxes of mismatched socks, and cheap jewelry. I wasn't finding much to get excited about until I noticed a cardboard box shoved under one of the tables. It was full of old VHS tapes, covered in dust so thick it made me cough when I bent down to look. I don't know what drew me to that box. I don't even own a TV with a built-in VCR anymore, but something about it felt promising. I started flipping through the tapes. Most had faded labels. Cheers, The Price is Right, and a random home-recorded football game. But one tape stood out. It didn't have a cover, just a piece of masking tape slapped on the front with 1987 written in smudged marker. That's it. No title, no hint at what might be on it. $5 for the box, said the guy behind the table. He was slouched in a lawn chair, feet propped up on a cooler, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. For all of these? I asked. He shrugged. Take it or leave it. I paid the guy and carried the box to my car. I figured if the tapes were garbage, I could always use them for some DIY project. But deep down, I was already curious about the one marked 1987. When I got home, I spent a good half hour digging my old VCR out of storage. I hadn't used it in years, but miraculously it still worked. I hooked it up to the TV, grabbed the 1987 tape, and settled onto the couch. As soon as I hit play, the screen flickered with static. For a moment I thought the tape might be ruined, but then the image stabilized. It was a park. The footage was shaky, like someone was holding a camcorder. Kids were running around, parents were chasing after them with picnic baskets, and couples were lounging on blankets in the sun. It looked like it was filmed on a summer afternoon, the kind of day you'd see in an old family photo album. I watched for a while, smiling at the simplicity of it all. The laughter of kids, the faint sound of birds chirping in the background. It was peaceful, nostalgic even. But then I noticed something strange. There was a man walking past the camera in the background. He wasn't part of the main scene, just a random passerby. But something about him caught my attention. It was me. At least it looked like me. Same height, same build, same messy hair. He was wearing a black hoodie and jeans, exactly like the ones I'd thrown on that morning. My stomach did a little flip. Okay, that's weird, I muttered to myself, leaning closer to the screen. The man, me, kept walking, his face turned away from the camera. But just before he left the frame, he glanced over his shoulder, right at the camera. No, not at the camera, at me. I froze. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, I thought I saw him smirk. Not a friendly smile, but something else. Something knowing. I didn't sleep much that night. My brain wouldn't stop spinning, replaying the scene over and over. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was someone who just happened to look like me. Maybe it was a glitch, or my mind playing tricks on me. The next morning, I went back to the flea market. The guy who sold me the tapes was still there, sitting in the same lawn chair, flipping through a newspaper. "Hey," I said, holding up the 1987 tape. "Do you remember where you got this?" He squinted at it. "Estate sale, I think. Couple towns over. Why? Do you remember the address or who it belonged to?" He shook his head. "Nope, I just buy in bulk." I nodded and walked away, frustration bubbling in my chest. Whoever had owned this tape was my only real lead, and it was a dead end. That night, I decided to watch the tape again. Maybe I'd missed something. Maybe there was a detail in the background that would explain everything. The tape started the same way, with the bustling park scene, but something was different. The laughter was gone. So were the people. The swings sat empty, creaking softly in the wind. Trash littered the ground, and the bright sunny sky had turned gray and overcast. The camera moved slowly, panning across the park. It felt deliberate, like whoever was holding it wanted me to see something. That's when I saw the bench. There was someone sitting on it. It was me. I was wearing the same black hoodie and jeans, but I looked wrong. My skin was pale, almost gray, and my eyes were wide and unblinking. My hands were clasped in my lap, and my mouth was twisted into a grin, a strange, unnatural grin that stretched too far. The camera zoomed in slowly, closing the distance between us. My grin widened, and I swear my eyes moved to meet the camera, even though my head stayed perfectly still. "Stop," I whispered, fumbling for the remote. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the button. Just before I hit eject, the screen went black. I shoved the tape back in the box and crammed it into the deepest corner of my closet, slamming the door shut like it could trap whatever was on that tape. I told myself I wouldn't watch it again. Ever. But even with it hidden away, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching me. The next morning I went about my day like normal, or tried to. When I walked to the coffee shop, I thought I saw someone standing across the street, holding a camcorder. They were just standing there, the lens pointed right at me. But when I blinked, they were gone. Later, while I was out running errands, I caught glimpses of people filming me from across parking lots, behind shelves in stores, even in the reflection of a car window. But every time I turned to confront them, they weren't there. At night, I started waking up to strange sounds, static, whispers. Sometimes I'd find my TV on, even though I'd unplugged it. The screen would be filled with snow, and for a brief second, I'd swear I saw something moving in the static, something shaped like me. I couldn't take it anymore. After 3 nights of sleepless terror, I knew I had to get rid of the tape. It wasn't enough to hide it. I needed to destroy it. I pulled the box out of the closet and grabbed the 1987 tape. My hands were trembling as I carried it to the basement, where I kept an old metal trash can. I didn't hesitate. I threw the tape inside, doused it with lighter fluid, and struck a match. The flames roared to life, filling the basement with thick, acrid smoke. The plastic casing warped and bubbled, and I thought I heard faint crackling, like whispers, but I convinced myself it was just the tape melting. I stood there, watching until nothing was left but ash. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of relief. It was over. Or so I thought. The next morning, something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. But then I noticed the little things. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked faint, like I was standing behind frosted glass. My shadow on the sidewalk seemed thinner, less defined. By the end of the day, people started looking through me, literally. At the grocery store, the cashier didn't acknowledge me, even when I handed her cash. She just stared past me, like I wasn't there. The worst part was the photos. Every picture of me, on my phone, in old family albums, even ones I'd framed on my walls, was blank. It was like I'd never existed. 2 days later, I woke up feeling weaker, my body barely able to move. My skin looked pale and translucent, like it was fading away. I stayed in the basement, terrified to face what was happening, and that's when I realized the truth. The burning didn't destroy the tape. It destroyed me. The tape was my tether, my anchor. By breaking it, I'd severed my connection to the world. Now I'm trapped here. I can still move, still think, but I'm not alive. My body is rotting, piece by piece, but it never fully falls apart. I don't need food or water, but I can't escape the hunger, the thirst, the aching pain. The basement is cold and dark, and I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks. Time doesn't mean anything anymore. Sometimes in the darkness, I hear the faint hum of a camcorder. I think someone's filming me again, but I can't see them. I'm afraid. Afraid that someday someone will find another tape. One with no label. One that shows a man in a basement, staring into the camera with wide, unblinking eyes and a twisted grin. If you find that tape, please don't watch it.